Welcome, everybody. This is a special recording we are doing before a great conference, which is just ahead of us. We would like all of you to join us on the 22nd of September for Masters and Robots conference in Poland. And we decided to do a few talks with special speakers for this edition of this conference. I'm Małgorzata Bonikowska, the president of ThinkTank, and the ThinkTank is powering the series of short talks. And today we have a special speaker, Rohit Bhargava. This is the way, Rohit, how we should pronounce your name?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with us today and dedicate this time. And Jovita is the president and founder of this initiative. So please introduce our guest.
Hi, I'm Jovita Michalska, CEO of Digital University, organizer of Masters and Robots. This time we have a 4th edition, but first time fully online. And it's a great pleasure, Rohit, to have you as one of our main speakers with us. Thank you that you're gonna join us.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sorry that I couldn't do it in person, so maybe next time.
Oh yes, we will miss it. You know, previously there were a lot of fun when we had all the speakers coming here from around the world. But next time we'll see you in Poland. Now we'll only watch the interview. So let me tell you a few words about Rohit, because there is a lot to tell about, but let me shorten it a bit. Rohit is a leading authority on marketing, trends, and innovation, founder of the Non-Obvious company. Rohit is also the #1 Wall Street Journal best-selling author of 6 books on topics as wide-ranging as the future of virtual work, building a human brand with personality, and also why leaders always eat left-handed. He teaches a very popular course on marketing and storytelling at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and also writes a monthly column on trends for GQ magazine in Brazil.
Wow.
Let me also tell you that I'm a huge fan of Rohit, and every year he's speaking at South by Southwest when more than 2,000 people are watching your speech about the non-obvious trends which you show every single year. So I was also attending a few of them, so they're really great.
Well,
thank you. Yes, that's a great event as well. So thank you for that introduction.
It's a great introduction, and we are 3 of us. We can see that we are fans of books, because behind us the books are there. So definitely Rohit's books.
You can't even see my full. That's my small bookcase. I have a full kind of wall over here of books as well. So.
Well, so I'm sure you will also write sooner or later one book on COVID and on the pandemic time, the time of cholera.
I probably will at some point. Yeah. Here, this is you can see all the other books on that side. So those are all.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So I have a lot of books, but you have a lot of books too. So we obviously like to read, all of us.
But this is also a smaller bookshelf because these belong to my daughter. Mine are, in the other room.
Okay, listen, because we definitely don't want to wait for the book. We want to listen to your speech very soon, in a few days. So we would like to concentrate on one little aspect of what you're covering, because you are following trends, and what you publish is really interesting also to understand our world of today. But this talk, we will concentrate on the future of work, because in the work environment, everything has changed radically, in one day, because of the lockdown, because of the situation we are still facing. So the pandemic is changing the work style, the work habits, the thinking of the leaders also.
Yes.
And that would be my first question to you. How can you describe this pandemic effect on the leaders thinking about work, how to work, about how they want to organize work for the others?
Well, I think that what's happened that I'm seeing, at least with a lot of leaders, is that there's a temptation to try and figure out what the policy is going to be that you then tell to everyone to say, this is how you're going to work. And the reality of what has happened with many workers is people are figuring things out on their own in the way that works the best for them. And so for many, many years, we've talked about this idea of empowerment at work, that we want our people to be empowered. We want them to be able to speak up and come up with new ideas. And I think what we're seeing right now is this mentality among many people, all of us, to say, we understand everything's changed. We understand everything's been disrupted. And now we're in a moment where we have to figure it out ourselves.
So in other words, you want to say that it's more like a joint effort to look for the right solution. The new normal way will be not a decision of a leader. It will be a joint effort to find out what is right.
Yeah, I think that will be part of it. I think smart leaders, the other thing they will do is they'll be able to understand what their people are doing and help them to do it more effectively instead of dictating to them, stop doing this and start doing that instead.
Right. Maybe one more thing concerning leaders. Do you think they are changing also the style of leadership because of these circumstances? Do you think this will have a permanent effect, or they're just rather waiting, this is over, and then they would be willing to go back to the reality they know the best?
I think that the most insecure leaders are probably the ones who are waiting and hoping it goes back. I think the confident leaders, the smart leaders, are the ones who are changing the way that they interact with their team because of this environment, and realizing that if they have empathy and if they make empathy a part of their leadership style, this virtual environment, I think, has offered a chance for that to be even more important. And if they didn't have it, then now what's happening is sort of showing everyone that they didn't have it in the first place. So it's exposing them in a way that maybe they were able to hide from or cover up before.
Dorita?
Yes, I'd like to know what do you think, how it's influencing all of us, because there are a few sides of the whole story. There are new leaders that have come to the stage, but we've also employees, and it's completely different situation for them. So how is this situation influencing them, in your opinion?
I think there's a lot of fear. I think that in general, because what we do, and at least the language that is used here in the US, where I am, is this idea of, are you essential or are you non-essential? And that's not a good question to feel like you have to ask yourself, right? Because unless you're a healthcare worker or a medical professional, you're probably not all that essential, right? I mean, I'm a marketing and storytelling guy. Like, how essential is that really in the realm of life and death? And so as soon as we're forced to ask these questions of ourselves, it changes our priorities a little bit. And I think that's what's happened for a lot of people that I'm talking to. So I used to travel to 50 events a year. I was always on a plane. I was always traveling. And now that I'm not doing that at all, I'm realizing that maybe I didn't need to do quite so much of it before, and I can start to prioritize a little bit differently as a result of that. And I think that's what's happening for a lot of people. They're trying to figure out what's really important. What type of work do I really do? And what was I maybe doing that I didn't need to be doing before?
And do you think when we look at the practical aspect of working under these extraordinary circumstances, do you see any trends in the work space, work environment, which were not seen earlier, which pandemic could somehow, start or open up a new field, something completely new which emerged these days or these months?
I think that there was a trend that I wrote about and that I talked about that I called flux commerce. And the trend really spoke about these two things that I saw happening in the world, even before the pandemic. The first one was that we have so many different industries. And in the past, there used to be a line between them. You're a technology company, you're a financial services company, you're a retailer, you're a travel company. And now those lines are getting mixed because you have Apple creating a credit card. You have banks opening up coffee shops. You have Taco Bell opening up a hotel, of Crayola that makes markers, creating a makeup line. And so all of these companies that were in one industry previously are now branching out into a different one, and it's the same company. And so one of the first of the two pieces of this trend that I was watching was just this blurring of industry lines. And I think because of the pandemic, that's become even bigger, even more pronounced. We're seeing that even more. And the second side of this trend was that the way we pay for things is changing, and the way we think about ownership is changing. So do I need to own a car? Should I buy a car? Should I just use it whenever I use it and then share it with somebody else? And that mentality has shifted business models. So now I don't buy software, I subscribe to software. I maybe don't buy a car, I subscribe to the car. And so this is rethinking those business models behind so many different industries that's causing a huge shift. And again, that was happening before the pandemic, but now because of the pandemic, it's even faster.
Yes. So let me dig a little bit down into a virtual work, because you know you've wrote a book about virtual work, and because there is a lot of discussions, I think a lot of things has been said already about how is it to work virtually, what are the pros and cons, what are the strengths and weaknesses of this kind of work. So can you tell, what do you think about it? So what are the strengths of working virtually? Because somehow, as you said, we didn't have to travel as much, but on the other hand, some of us feel lonely sitting, spending months at home.
Yeah, all of us do.
Some of us, and finally understand that there is, and there is no something like multitasking when you have like kids at home, you work at home, you do many things. So what do you think about it after those months?
Yeah, you're right. Those are all very common struggles. And I think the first thing that I share with anyone who is going through any of those things, whether it's distractions, kids at home, loneliness, is that they're not alone. We all feel that. Even someone who, I probably have 6 or 7 conversations like this with people where I can look at people in the eye a day. So it's not like I'm sitting here by myself talking to no one. I'm actually probably talking to more people. But that doesn't mean that you don't feel lonely sometimes still, right? There are people who you can feel lonely even though you're surrounded by people, right? And so part of it is just saying, look, this is natural. And the ideal thing that I found, and you're right, I wrote a whole book about techniques to deal with this because I've been a remote worker for almost the last 6 years. Worked from my house. I have colleagues, I've interacted with them. Obviously, I go to a lot of events, so I've seen people, but I'm used to working separately. I'm used to working remotely. I have 2 boys and they're both loud. So like I have a lot of distractions that happen at home. And so there's a couple of techniques that I have figured out to be able to deal with that. And that's what I write about in the book. And one of them is knowing your times of day. So I am a much better writer if I write earlier in the day. If I try and write in the afternoon, I get nothing done. So I just don't try. I don't write then. I do other stuff. I do my boring financial, like paying invoices and things like that. I do the other stuff, or I'll go to my son's soccer practice and just be outside or do those things in the afternoon. And then I'll come back and do what I need to do later on. So part of it is knowing your cycle of when you can be productive. The other thing I use a lot is we call them attention hacks. So ways of hacking your attention. So one of my favorite tools is a website called Coffeetivity. It's the word coffee and productivity together, Coffeetivity. And it plays the sound of a coffee shop in the background. So you have this background noise, this white noise that allows you to sort of drown out anything else that's going on, including 2 boys fighting with each other. And that way you can focus on something. So it's figuring out little things like that work for you, that is part of being able to conquer the distractions.
Great hint.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because it's more about us even than about the work itself. It's more like learning about our own habits and the needs and weaknesses as well. So my last question in this series, because we don't want, to say everything now, because we want everyone to join us for the conference.
Yes.
It would be your prediction for the future. What would be, in your opinion, the future of work, let's say in 2030 or 2050 even, because some lessons we've learned from the pandemic, some things we thought they're great don't work well, and some other things we maybe thought it is not necessary to have. Now we think, yes, we miss them maybe. So what would be your prediction for 2030, 2050?
Yes, and if there will be future of work for people in 2050.
Yes, that's really it's interesting that you frame it that way, because I think that there's a term that we often hear, that we talk a lot about right now, that by 2030 or maybe by 2050 will seem like a strange thing to even ask, which is this idea of work-life balance. We talk a lot about work-life balance, and for many people it's gotten much harder, because like work happens here and life happens like one bedroom away from here, right? So we're in the same place. And I think that when you talk to someone who loves what they do, who's an entrepreneur, and who runs their own thing and is doing what they're passionate about, and you ask them about work-life balance, they say, look, I always have work-life balance because I like the work that I'm doing, and I work when I want to work, and I live life when I want to live, and I don't have these boundaries. It's not like it's 6 o'clock and alarm rings and all of a sudden I stop thinking about my business and I start talking to my family again, right? I went out and I had lunch with them. Like, we hung out together. I'll take a break and we'll go and play a game, and then I'll come back and I'll do some work, and like, this is just life. There's not like work over here and life over here. And some people live their lives that way, and some people they start work at a certain time and they end work at a certain time, and that's it. And I think that is probably the biggest thing that I imagine will change in the future, that this idea that we work from this time to this time and then we finally are free, or even in our lives, right? We work for 30 years and then we retire. That idea, I think, is old and starting to go away in terms of the mentality of children now, who will be in their 50s or 60s by 2050,
and if they lived 120 years.
Yeah, that's right. Like, what do you want to do? Like, work for up until you're 50 and then you have 70 years of sitting around doing nothing? I mean, that might sound awesome to some people because they're overworked right now.
But not for many.
No, because like, you got to do something, right? And that doesn't mean you have to do work or make money. And that was the biggest thing. Like, a lot of people, they connect work with money all the time. And they say, look, if I'm doing work, it's only to make money, because that's why I'm working. And one of the first things that I talked to a lot of people who were panicking when the pandemic first hit, one of the first things I told them is, I said, the week after the pandemic hit and all of my speaking went away. So I had all of these paid speaking opportunities. They all went away. It was down from like, quite a bit of money to zero money. That same week, I made $1,000. And the way I made $1,000 is I found some of the old phones around our house and I sold them on eBay for $1,000. Now, that's not what I want to do like professionally, right?
Companies you mentioned, that you also changed a little bit your profile, you switched into a different
I did that afterwards. Yeah, I did that afterwards, right? But the thing that I realized in that first week when I made money is it made me feel so much better, because I realized that making money and doing work don't have to be the same thing. If I desperately need money, I can find stuff around the house, or I can buy stuff and I can sell it for more, right? There's ways to make money that don't necessarily have to be the thing you want to do professionally.
But that's the way we usually start, our career, not end our career by, buying stuff and selling it more expensive. That's usually the beginning of the story.
Yeah, that's true. But you can go back to the beginning sometimes, like I did, and I made some money doing it. So.
but I think a very good lesson from your speech now is that it's a little bit similar with education, that maybe we completely wrongly distinguish. It's a false distinction between work and life. We should just have our normal life and mixing passion and habits and the things we like to do with capacity of making money somehow also on it. Like with education, we should really learn all the time, not only at school and then end and then no more, you know, going back to school. It's just permanent learning today needed if we want to be updated with reality. So I think maybe the same mixing will happen with work. Thanks for this. Jovita, now over to you.
Thank you so much, Rohit. It was really like, I feel that we touched a lot of areas. Hopefully we're going to continue this areas, like discussing on it during Masters and Robots. So let me just remind, we have your speech the 22nd of September. It will be 4 p.m. Central European Time. And the title of the talk will be Afterward, How Non-Obvious Thinking Can Make You Ready for What Comes Next, which is very important and very unusual today to be ready for what comes next, because almost no one is ready now.
Very important. Very important, that's right.
And a lot of things are non-obvious today. We better start thinking in new ways and, you know, inventing instead of just repeating the old habits. Yes. Thank you very much from my side. Thank you, Rohit. Thank you, Jovita.
Thank you, Małgosia, and thank you, Rohit, for you know, for sharing all these ideas with us. Thank you so much, and see you very soon on Masters and Robots.
That's right. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.